All right. So I'd like to introduce Anna Aceves, behind the scenes of NOVA, space-related digital videos. And I've seen some of the videos that she sent links of, and this is really cool. So I'm really excited to introduce Anna and take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. And actually the title of my talk is Into the NOVAverse. So I will be doing an overview not only of the digital videos that I work on, but also an overview of all the things that we work on at NOVA, which is quite extensive, hence why I use the title Into the NOVAverse. So thank you for the introduction again. My name is Anna Aceves, and I am joining you from Quincy, Massachusetts, the traditional unceded territory of the Massachusetts Pokanoket Wampanoag nations. I acknowledge Indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of the land and the enduring relationship that exists between them and their traditional territories. So thank you again. So I'm going to start with how I got to NOVA. So when I was about 12 years old, I had somehow convinced myself that I needed to absolutely plan the rest of my life. And I was one of those who needed a plan. I still need a plan. I'm still very, type A, very organized. But I had convinced myself I needed to know what I wanted to do with my life. And I remember thinking I wanted to be perhaps a preschool teacher like my mom. I liked working with kids at the time. In hindsight, I'm not very patient with kids. So maybe it was a good idea I didn't quite go into preschool education. But I remember the first time I really took in space and took in the universe and my surroundings. So I'm from California originally, Central California. And the summers, as you can probably believe, get unbearably hot. And this particular summer evening, I was sitting on my front porch, and I had this sort of like out of body experience where I got to visualize myself in the universe. So I started just like a top-down view of myself and my neighborhood. And then I expanded a little bit to like my city and my region in Central California, kept going and going past the galaxy and thinking about other galaxies that exist in the world. Because at that point, I knew that there were other galaxies. And I imagined, what if there's another little girl in another galaxy doing the same thought experiment I was? So shivers went down my spine. I ran into the house, and my mom was like doing laundry or something. And Mom, I know what I want to do with my life. And she goes, oh, Mija, like, what do you want to do? And I goes, I want to be an astrologer. Now, granted, at the time, I didn't know the difference between astronomy and astrology, but she very patiently looks at me. She goes, I think you might be an astronomer. And she was right. So fast forward a few years, and by a few, I mean several, and I find myself at UC Berkeley. So I get into Berkeley, and I am majoring in astrophysics. But my physics classes are incredibly challenging. I've always really enjoyed physics and math through high school, but it was one of those experiences where I felt really satisfied when I finished a difficult problem. And then I get to college and those problems are significantly harder. And I feel defeated. I feel like I don't belong. I joined clubs and organizations that helped me kind of find my place and find my bearing and get the support that I needed. But I also decided I wanted to come up with a plan B. Again, going back to me needing to plan my entire life. So I thought, I know I didn't want to be into research. I wasn't particularly interested in getting my PhD. I wasn't particularly good at Python or coding either, so that heavily influenced that. But I really liked communications. I like speaking to people. I was a tour guide at Berkeley, so I thought, speaking might be a good way to go. So I decided to double major in mass communications, or media studies, as it was known there. But I had no real idea of how to combine the two. It was always very much plan A, plan B, figure something out with astronomy and or go into human resources, I don't know. Eventually, I learned about science communication and science journaling, and I applied to BU's program, their master's in science communication. I got in, moved myself across the country, didn't know anyone in Boston, didn't know anyone in Massachusetts, actually. But that was really kind of the start of this incredible journey and this incredible opportunity to work at NOVA. One of my former supervisor actually went to one of my classes and to talk about, more or less the same spiel I'm giving here. And I like cornered him after class and I was like, this sounds incredible. This sounds amazing. Like, do you have any job openings? I was that gutsy. And he was like, we take interns, let's talk. But a while after that, I eventually made it to NOVA, where I have been for almost 5.5 years now. I work primarily on short form videos for our digital audience. I'm a digital producer making content for Facebook, Instagram, all the above, but also working on administrating our website and all sorts of things. So working at NOVA has been incredibly rewarding experience as well as challenging. I'm learning a lot. I've grown as a science journalist. I've grown as a communicator. So it's really been an incredible opportunity to be able to work here. But in case you aren't familiar with what NOVA is, like I was as a 20-something-year-old at BU, NOVA is the longest running and most trusted and most popular science program on American television. An average of 4 million people watch every week on PBS. So we're reaching quite a big audience. But it is also a multimedia, multi-platform brand. So, these are some of the icons I'm sure are familiar to you. You're aware of, Amazon, YouTube, PBS, of course. So it's part of a larger kind of system and a larger network. But what I'm going to focus the bulk of my conversation with you all today is on NOVA digital videos, which is what I primarily work on. Excuse me. And we have 3 types of videos. We have excerpts, broadcast related, and originals. And I will go through each one of these, I promise. So we are going to start with a short clip, and it's an excerpt from a program called, Particles Unknown.
At the South Pole, Ice Cube.
Ice Cube is in this huge field around me. I'm kind of standing in the middle of Ice Cube. It's kind of amazing to think that we were able to haul something like 5 million pounds of cargo down to the South Pole. This is instrumentation, cables, drill equipment, fuel.
As well as probing neutrino oscillations, Ice Cube acts like a neutrino telescope, catching cosmic neutrinos from billions of light years away.
This is the universe that has really only been open to our eyes for the last 50 years. There's all kinds of discoveries that are waiting out there.
Okay, so that was an excerpt that we packaged for Facebook. And an excerpt is just basically a scene pulled directly from a broadcast episode. These are videos that have already been finished. They're already, the programs have already been finished. And we're really just taking scenes that we think stand well on their own or are engaging or are about something that's going to spark a conversation, and we pull them and we package them for social media. And the way we kind of do that really depends on the format. So for instance, on Facebook, we deal with an aspect ratio of 4:5, which is this vertical kind of layout you see. And the reason we do that is because most of our Facebook videos are viewed on mobile, so on people's phones. And when you have something that size, it just takes more real estate on your phone. Like it's just a bigger video, or at least it used to be. We add our watermark, which of course reminds folks what they're watching and who is producing this video. We also burn in our captions, which were the yellow and the white text that you saw in the videos. And we do this because oddly enough, about 80 to 90% or a really large number of people who consume our videos on Facebook watch it with audio off. And so how are you going to learn if there's no audio? And the way we kind of get around that is by burning in our captions. Of course, we identify our speakers so that people know who are the experts that we're reaching out to. And we also have PBS approved end cards. Usually they remind people to tune in and watch the full length program. They include our funders. So those are very important kind of pieces that we include in our videos. So this kind of thinking specifically how to package for each social media platform is done by our incredible audience development team. And so they're really the ones who are kind of thinking and strategizing on how to best implement these changes so that we make the biggest impact to our audience. The other kind of video that I work on are broadcast related originals. And I think this might be one of the ones that I sent Joe some time ago. So why don't we take a quick look at this one. I hope folks find it interesting and may potentially recognize the narrator's voice. After decades of work, NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST, is about to start its million-mile journey. The Hubble Space Telescope, launched in 1990, opened up new windows on the universe. But scientists expect that JWST will reveal even more, revolutionizing our understanding of the cosmos and perhaps bringing us closer to answering the age-old question, are we alone?
The whole launch day is going to be filled with emotions. It's an engineering marvel that we as humans, we have never done this before.
I feel very nervous, but excited and just ready to go.
I mean, there's so much writing on this telescope. It's been decades of work that's gone into it.
It's taken us a long time to get here, but man, we're so excited. We're so ready for this to go. This will be a transformative facility, and it will show us so many things that we just haven't seen.
JWST. Yes, so as you can tell, this is about the James Webb Space Telescope, which launched recently, but this is also related to an upcoming broadcast episode. So sneak peek, I suppose, we will be producing and airing an episode on the James Webb Space Telescope later this year. But these types of videos, most of this footage is shot by external producers. So the production team that works on the full-length programs, we use those interviews, those clips that they, go to a location to shoot, and we've packaged them ourselves and kind of come up with our own sort of story. We rely, in this case, for footage from NASA and public domain to kind of fill in some of the gaps in the story that we're trying to tell. But these also allow us more creativity, allow us to script and storyboard and audio mix and musical score. So these are a rewarding way to kind of promote our programs and promote our full-length content just by repurposing the materials that the external producers are already working on. And these types of videos, I think, are probably my favorite. Because I don't necessarily have a lot of experience with camera and camera equipment. So I would much rather someone go shoot, someone go film at a location, and then just give me all the stuff and I will edit and put together a story and try to kind of pull the strings of the story there. So the last type of video that we work on are originals. And this one is a bit of it's not necessarily space related, but it's tangentially related. Let's see if maybe you can figure out how it's science related. Sandworm-like creatures of all varieties have long slithered through science fiction and fantasy, including Tremors.
Must be a million of them. Nope, just one.
Beetlejuice. Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. The Mandalorian, and even SpongeBob. Yes, I know that's not sci-fi, but Bikini Bottom is pretty fantastic if you ask. Now sandworms are back, shaking things up on planet Arrakis in the 2021 movie Dune, based on the 1965 sci-fi novel by Frank Herbert.
I think the main thing that you notice about the sandworms is they're huge, right? But they're also, incredibly ugly. I wouldn't want to see one in real life.
I read Dune when I was a teenager, and I don't remember very much about the book itself, but I do remember the sandworm because it was huge and scary and ugly.
Is there any science to this fiction? According to the fandom wiki page, sandworms in the Dune universe could grow to about 1,500 feet. That's over a quarter of a mile. For comparison, Earth's largest animal, the blue whale, is only about 80 feet long.
That's common in sci-fi, right? They don't have to follow the rules of physics necessarily. So animals can be as large as they want them to be.
So that was a quick video, not quick, it was a video I worked on looking at the sandworms in Dune, a book that I didn't read, but I definitely want to read now. Looking at whether that it could possibly exist, what are the parameters for a creature like that to exist. So this is sci-fi and not necessarily, space related itself, but it was a really fun video to work on. I got to think creatively and think about how to depict this creature. But also for these types of videos, we don't have any readily available footage, hence why we call them originals. We really do rely on virtual interviews and stock libraries for these. So all of the interviews that are done for this one were done via Zoom. But we also sometimes go, if they're local to Boston, we will go and set up in their lab space, etc., to film them or to interview them. And again, these are probably the ones that we can have the most creativity. We do script and storyboard and work with the audio and musical score, but we really take the time to think about visuals and really think about how we're going to tell this story in a way that can be exciting for viewers. And for this one, I got to do a lot of animation, which was fun for me. So that really concludes the digital side, the digital video side of things. Does anybody have any questions for me?
And I have a question about the broadcast related. There's the original broadcast and it's got story A, and then there's the broadcast related video that's got story B. You mentioned it's got a different story. And give me an example why and how the story is different.
That's a great question. I probably shouldn't have used the word different. I think it's the same story that we're trying to tell, but in a full-length program, you have an hour, right, to tell a story. And there's lots of kind of mini stories within it. A digital video that is broadcast related will only kind of talk about a few things. So for instance, this James Webb one was an overview of the technical side of things and an overview of the kind of science that they did or that this telescope was going to do. It wasn't necessarily a new story. It was just synthesized into a digital video that could be consumed in 7 minutes or so instead of sitting through an entire hour. I see someone else has a question.
Yeah, Dave McDonald here. And I was wondering, have you done any work in your production relative to the New Horizons mission past Pluto and Arrokoth?
Are you referring to the one that was Ultima Thule?
Yes, that one.
Yes. So I know they changed their name, and I haven't had it. I don't remember what they changed it to.
Arrokoth.
Yes. So yes, I Nova did produce a full-length video on that, and that was one of the videos that we got to go to Maryland and shoot at location. So when that whole event happened, I think it was at Johns Hopkins.
Yes, it was. And can I tell you a secret?
Sure.
I have a TV show called The Sky This Month. It's a cable TV show. It's shown on 66 stations around the country. And I was there in person myself, and my camera spot for my show was right next to Nova.
Hey, that's awesome.
So we were buddies talking back and forth, and
Yeah.
it was fun. So that's neat to hear that you were involved with that production.
Yeah, I was there. We did a couple of really
Oh.
quick turnaround videos, kind of as the footage coming in. We were in our hotel rooms, at several different people editing and putting together videos so that we could report on it as close to the I guess launch of the information as possible.
Cool. Did you get to see or interview Brian May at all?
I did see Brian May.
Yeah.
I think I saw his debut of his music video.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we saw that together then, and Brian is a Pluto fan, just so you know.
I'm a Pluto fan too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Does anyone have any more questions? Okay, if not, I will move on to our text pieces. So Nova Next is Nova's award-winning digital publication. So we work on a mix of features and news reporting, Q&As, and explainers. And these are an opportunity for us to explain things via text reporting. It's a sometimes it's a quicker way to tell a story. We have a very dedicated team who go out and are very methodical about how they report our stories. And just as a quick note, the 35 articles that were published last year amassed over 1 million page views. So we're really trying to cover a wide variety of topics in as many ways as we can. Digital video being one of them, text being another. And sometimes we can be a little more nimble with text in a way that maybe we can't with video because of production schedules, people's availability and bandwidth. So that's another way that we really try to reach and engage our audience. Another way is through podcasts. So we launched Nova Now pretty recently. It is a bi-weekly podcast digging into the science behind the headlines. We, I think, just concluded our second season. So host Alok Patel takes you behind the scenes with the people, the scientists, engineers, technologists, mathematicians, and more, working to understand our world. So this is available wherever you get your podcasts. They're about 30 to 40 minutes, and they're a great way of kind of reaching a different audience who are more audibly inclined and who prefer to consume podcasts. So we're there too. And then, of course, and maybe you're all familiar with Nova Broadcasts. So we work on about 20 new programs every year. And then we work with producers for many, many, many months to get a program from inception and ideation stage to the point where you can see it on your TV sets. It takes a long time to kind of get there. The best case scenario is 9 months, give or take. But sometimes it can be over like more than 10 a year. Sometimes some videos or some programs are in development for several years before they get on the air because it really just depends on the schedules. But it really is an iterative process. There are many rounds of edits and working closely with our editorial team at Nova to make sure that it's visually engaging, that our story is there, that we're talking to the right people, that we're highlighting the aspects that want to be highlighted. And then of course we, under all of our programs, as well as all of our digital videos, undergo a very rigorous fact-checking process because we want to make sure that, we are a very trusted source. So we want to make sure that our content is as accurate as possible. And is really, not spreading misinformation or putting something out there that we don't know or that we can't verify. More recently, we've been working on programs that are related to science and society. These are projects, both short form and long form, that highlight the intersections between science and public understanding of current societal issues. So for instance, here we have poisoned water, as well as looking at the water crisis in Flint. We have addiction, which looks at the opioid epidemic. We have the cannabis question, which aired last year, looking at cannabis use and the science behind it, as well as decoding the weather machine, which is looking at how weather patterns have changed, and it's a climate change show. And so with these programs, we're really trying to push the conversation further and really ask ourselves, how can science help us understand this issue? How are the communities impacted? And what are the evidence-based solutions to some of these problems that our society faces? Because, you know, as much as I do love science, and of course I love science, as much as I do love space, I am a member of society, and I do worry about these other facets that are going on in our everyday world. So that is that for now. Does anyone have any questions up to this point?
Anna, all these different media and all these different programs, is a typical day you have an in basket with all these shorts and longs and videos and podcasts? What's that look like, and how do you prioritize all this type of work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There were about 40 people at NOVA, which is both equally large and a small amount of people. But really, we're kind of focused on different kind of tasks and responsibilities. I'm on the digital team, so I'm a digital video producer, which means I focus most of my time, if not all of my time, on making these short form videos that I explained earlier. We have another group of people who are working specifically on text. We have another group of people that are working on social, that are working on broadcast, that are working on education and labs, which I will get to. And there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of wearing multiple hats, but it really is about kind of prioritizing your own work and what you were hired to do. I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's a matter of just thinking about the stories we want to tell, and also finding the time to do other stuff and support in other places where it's needed.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Carl. I've got a question on how do I access all these different programs, like these NOVA broadcasts, let's say the poison water one, the weather. Is that on the NOVA site?
Yes, so I do include a link to NOVA PBS's site at the end of the slide deck, but you can also find some of them on YouTube. We're trying to put more full-length videos there. The PBS video app, you can also find them there. We do have something called Passport, which is a paid subscription, I believe, similar, or a paywall. But we always have more than 20 episodes that are available for streaming. I would say realistically, like about 30 to 40 videos or full-length programs that are always streaming or always available for people to stream. That's for the full-length programs. The short-form videos, you can find all of them also on our site. If you follow us on social media and Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you will find a lot of them there.
And I could just put in a quick plug for the Passport program. I'm a Passport member, love it, love the access. And I also feel that my dollars as a Passport member are going to help produce such wonderful programs. So I encourage people to join up with the Passport program.
Thank you. And that money is used to pay our salaries and pay all of us. So I appreciate your contributions. And if no one, yes.
Larry LaForge here. Just where did the ideas for the shows come up with, and how do you come up with the different topics that you discuss?
Yeah, so I should clarify that I don't work on the broadcast. So any information that I give is with that huge caveat. The knowledge I have is based on being at NOVA for 5.5 years and talking to my colleagues. But it really is about finding stories that maybe are already being told, acquiring videos that are mostly done or close to done, co-producing with companies and with external producers, as well as coming up with original ones. We do have an editorial team who meets regularly to brainstorm story ideas. A lot of them are just kind of brainchilds or brainchildren of the same people who work with us. Our executive producers are really instrumental in helping pick the stories and the topics. But it really, like if I were to go and say, I really want to tell a story about color or whatever, or you know, I'm trying to think of an example, fitness tracking apps. Say I wanted to do a story on that. I would go through more or less a similar process that our external producers go to. I'd have to write a treatment and prepare, you know, a document with outlining the story that I would tell, who I would talk to, what kind of visuals are being included. So all of that kind of gets reviewed by our editorial team who makes those decisions. But we are open to accepting suggestions. I think there's a box or a site where you can submit a form, or with a form that you can submit your ideas. So we're trying to expand the pool of where we get our stories from. Any more questions? Okay. There are opportunities for questions at the end, just if I don't get to them now. The other kind of area that we cover is NOVA Education and Outreach. We have a whole team that is dedicated to working with educators and providing information for teachers and the like. PBS Learning Media is the central hub for educational content produced from PBS brands with over 1.8 million registered educators on the platform. NOVA is one of the primary contributors of its STEM content. There are over 1,600 free resources, videos, apps, games, interactives, and all of these are aligned to NGSS standards for middle and high schoolers. And over the past few years, we've been focusing on extending our outreach beyond the classroom and into the communities across the country through things like PD webinars, virtual field trips, as well as national events and screenings. We have also started a new program called Nova Science Studio. This is a program that offers high school students the opportunity to learn science, reporting, and short-form video production skills centered around issues in their communities. Over the course of several months, the students get to receive training on video production fundamentals, storytelling, and science journalism from experts on the field. So our NOVA education team works really hard to reach out to all these different communities and make sure that our content isn't just something that you engage with on a screen, but that you really think about and lead conversations with in your community. We also work on NOVA Labs. We have a team dedicated to creating interactive games for middle and high schoolers. These also follow the NGSS standards, and we also provide educator guides and lesson plans to make it easy for teachers to use them in the classroom. One of the most recent NOVA Labs that we released is the Exoplanet Lab, which I think is incredibly fun. And it really does gamify learning, which is we're trying to find ways to educate students and make sure that they learn, not always realizing that they're learning something, because if you can turn something into a game, it's wildly more fun. And with this Exoplanet Lab, the students are learning to think like the real exoplanet hunting scientists. They use the same techniques and the same data that that exoplanet hunting scientists use, but they do it in a fun narrative about helping displaced aliens find a suitable new homes. So it's really fun, it's really quirky. The aliens are cute. And then our newest lab, and I mention this because April is Financial Literacy Awareness, I believe. Financial Lab is our newest lab, and it is also a good example of how we're using cutting edge behavioral science to create games that offer students a safe place to learn real life financial skills by trial and error. So they're not really spending money, real money, they're learning how to take care of their finances with virtual money and through a gaming experience. And then finally, we are trying to focus really on increasing diversity in front and behind the camera, as well as in the types of stories we're telling. NOVA is actively curating a list of scientists of color across disciplines for external producers, and thinking of other ways that we can increase DEI efforts across all of our projects. We are trying to help the future generation, regardless of what they look like, visualize themselves as scientists and have access both visually and through a variety of different stories that we're telling to enriching the types of content that is available for them. So that is an overview of the NOVAverse. NOVA at its center, with the digital team really working on creating video and text and podcasts, as well as, you know, all of the work that goes into social media to kind of promote our content and make sure it reaches our audience. We have the broadcast, which is its own kind of thing and is a huge part of what we do. But we also have the education team working on PBS learning media, the virtual field trips, the screenings and events. Our labs team is also part of the NOVAverse. And of course, none of this could happen without all of our administrators and people who help make sure that the wheels on the bus go round and round and everyone gets paid and that things work. That really DEI is, or diversity, equity, and inclusion is a part of everything. We really do try to implement it in every part of NOVA that we can. And yeah, to every part of NOVA that we can. So again, I'd like to thank you all for your time this evening. Thank you to Joe for the invitation and to Kelly, who I don't think is here, Kelly Beatty, for making the introduction. I'd also like to thank the NOVA staff for their ongoing support and guidance, especially those who helped me with this presentation: Suki Bennett, Ralph Bouquet, David Condon, Robin Casimir, Karen Norton, Gina Varamo, and Emily Zent. And that concludes my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'll happily take them.
Question about international. How international are you? And do you translate in other languages or anything like that?
Ooh, that is a good question. As far as I know, caveat there again, we do distribute NOVA programs internationally. I don't know the specifics about translations or the reach. I really don't know that information, but I do know that it happens and I do know that it exists. And I think that is done through PBS distribution. Any other questions? I've included here a link to, not a link, the URL for our website, that's pbs.org/NOVA. I've included our handle for social media, at NOVA PBS. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I've also included my personal email if you'd like to reach out and have any further questions, as well as my handle, where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I don't post very often, but occasionally I do.
Anna, I have to say this was wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed this presentation, and I know I'll start with a couple of questions. Actually, if anybody else wants to ask a question, I'll let somebody else ask.
I don't have a question, but I think it would be great to come up with an idea about amateur astronomy in America and different clubs and such like that.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We are starting a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to tell stories at this intersection of science and society that I mentioned earlier. That is an opportunity for us to really tell stories at that intersection. So, amateur astronomy really fits in there. So actually one of the pieces that I wrote while I was at BU was on amateur astronomy and making telescopes, or I think I went to the Massachusetts branch of this organization.
The Amateur Telescope Makers of Boston, that one?
Mom?
I don't remember. I don't exactly remember what it was called. It was many years ago, but I did go to a venue, a location where people were working on their telescope while I was a student at BU.
Anna, just to make a
Hi.
comment, there's another peg that you could do too, and that is citizen science related to astronomy. A
Yes,
lot of
absolutely.
programs out there where people can actually participate in the science.
Mhm. That's a wonderful, wonderful idea.
A question, one of the things I do in addition to having the Sky This Month show, I teach a STEM class at Belmont High School, and part of it from time to time is video production and such. And do you entertain field trips at your WGBH?
Well, we have in the past had a tour or field trips of such at GBH. I think we were open to it. With this pandemic, you know, the workspace at GBH looks wildly different. You know, gone are the days where I would get up 2 hours before needing to be into the office and get ready and commute and sit at my desk for 8 hours. You know, I work in my living room now. As do many folks. So I couldn't tell you whether or not we are still doing field trips and such. We do offer virtual field trips with science experts that are hosted by members of NOVA staff. But I don't have a concrete answer for you. I apologize.
The COVID
No problem.
changes.
That's helpful. Thank you. Yeah, COVID's changed a lot of things.
Mhm.
Anna, what was the biggest surprise when you saw the job description and you came in to digitally produce videos and other content for the first time? What struck you as, hey, this is different from what I imagined it?
So I was hired as a production assistant, not a digital producer. I did not have any video making experience. That's not totally accurate. I had very little video making experience. I took 1 semester of a course on video production at BU before I was hired. And that was as fundamental and as basic as you can probably imagine. So once I started as a production assistant, after I kind of dealt with the fire hose of information that's onboarding and just all of the content and all, you know, learning about all the things that happen at NOVA. I think once I had that handled, I really started to develop my production skills. And I think the thing that struck me as the most surprising was just how long it takes to make a video. A video, the final product can be like anywhere between 5 and 7 minutes long. But really, it takes weeks and weeks of work. The model that we had for video production up until pretty recently was that each individual digital producer was in charge of the ideation phase, coming up with the story, reaching out to people to interviewing them, scripting, fact checking, editing, doing the visual, like finding all of the visuals, scoring and music, as I mentioned. And then after a video gets published, making sure that all of the rights are documented, making sure that all the different versions go where they need to go, making sure that, you know, yeah, we call it shutdown. All of the right stuff is finalized. And that takes a long time from like beginning to end. And I just was not anticipating that. I was not expecting that. I thought I was going to be popping a video out every week. It takes much longer.
It does. Okay. Anything about the culture, so to speak, in the video and in media producing biz that was different than what you expected?
I think for the first time in a long time, I found myself surrounded by people who were excited about science, who were nerds in science and like not afraid to show it. I think before then I was a little too cool for school. Like I very much have always been interested in science, but even in college at Berkeley and at BU, like it was still like, you know, I don't know why, but you know, kids are always like, if you show your true feelings, that's uncool. But at NOVA, I think I really enjoyed and appreciated being surrounded by like-minded individuals who are as enthusiastic about science as I was, who are not afraid to show it, who are not afraid to show their excitement and their awe and their amazement at kind of the things that we're covering and the things that we're reporting on. So that has been incredibly nice and, rewarding in and itself, forming a community with friends, they're colleagues, but a lot of them are my friends as well. Go to their birthdays, invite them to my birthday. So it's really been a great experience for me overall.
Very good. Other questions?
Okay, well, if no one has any more questions, again, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for your questions, for your time and your attention on this Friday evening. It's been a delight on my end.
Thank you so much.
Very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Thank you for the comments. I'm just seeing them now. All right, well, I'm going to log off. But again, thank you so much, everyone, for your time and your attention this evening.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.